All right, I'm now going to call to order this regular meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission. It is July 17th, 2024, and I have the time as 6:36 p.m.
Okay, please be advised that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice of the time, date, and place of this rescheduled meeting of the Jersey City Historic Preservation Commission has been provided to the Jersey Journal, the Jersey City Reporter, and El Especialito. Same notice has been provided to the clerk's office in City Hall for posting on the bulletin board and on the city's website. I have proof of this notice in evidence, which we could mark as B1. Good? Okay. All right, we'll do a roll call attendance. Commissioner Griga?
Here.
Commissioner Sankamp?
Here.
Commissioner Gunther?
Here.
Commissioner Blazak?
Here.
Commissioner Cronin?
Here.
Commissioner Amatuzzo is absent. Commissioner Sakong is absent. Vice Chair Gucciarda?
Here.
And Chairman Gordon.
Present.
Okay. There are 7 members of the commission in attendance tonight. 5 affirmative votes are needed for a certificate of appropriateness. Moving down on the agenda, we have the minutes from the regular meeting of June 17th. Anyone have any questions or comments? All right, staff recommends a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Sankamp?
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther?
Aye.
Commissioner Blazak?
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin?
Abstain.
Okay. Commissioner Griga?
If I read it, I could.
Yeah, you're good.
Aye.
Commissioner Amatuzzo is absent. Commissioner Sakong is absent. Vice Chair Gucciarda?
Aye.
And Chairman Gordon.
Aye.
Right, there are 6 votes in favor, none against, with 1 abstention. The minutes from June 17th are approved. Copies of correspondence are linked on tonight's agenda in the application number that will take you to all correspondence and application materials. For announcements, we do have a couple of cases that are being carried this evening. Case 9B, 2624 JFK, is going to be carried to a date uncertain at the request of the applicant. Case 9C, which is the proposed amendments to the local landmark designation standards, is going to be carried to the regular HPC meeting of August 12th. That is our next regularly scheduled meeting. And case 11A, which is the demolition review of 384 Communipaw, is going to be carried to the August HPC meeting. All right. Any questions on any of those application carries? Okay. All right, next is open public comment. If there are any members in the public who would like to address the commission regarding matters of historic preservation that are not on tonight's agenda, you can approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and requests a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion to open and close public comment. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that brings us to our first case.
So we're, at the request of the applicant, going to be taking the old business applications out of order. So I'll first call item 8B, which is case H23-48. The applicant is Stephen Joseph Esquire on behalf of 88-90 Bright SPE LLC, owner. The address is 90 Bright Street. This is in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. The application is for a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a 4-story, 4-unit residential building and associated site work. This is a recommendation to the Jersey City Zoning Board of Adjustment, and this was previously carried at the request of the applicant from the May 2024 regular meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be recusing myself from H23-0048 and 0047 due to the proximity of my primary residence.
Noted, thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Stephen Joseph for the applicant. This was carried from the last hearing at the request of the applicant. We've made some modifications to the plan after getting some feedback from the board. We do have a different architect here this evening. Caroline's filling in for Will. She has not appeared here before, so we are going to have to get her sworn in and qualified by the board.
Bridget usually swears up, yeah.
Yes. My name is Caroline. It's Caroline. My last name is Grieco, Grieco. I'm a licensed architect in New Jersey and New York. I have a master's degree from Pratt Institute.
Okay, staff recommends that chair accept Caroline's qualifications as an expert in the field of architecture.
Yes, so accepted.
All right.
Great. Is the technology working?
Oh, yeah, that's my job. Give me a sec on that. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, I will attempt to multitask and just state, at the May meeting, Commissioners Gucciardo and Commissioner Garriga were not present. However, it's my understanding that both of you have read the transcript and reviewed the video. If you guys would consider affirming as such.
Confirm.
Yes, confirmed.
Okay. Stephen, is that acceptable?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, of course, the thing is not connecting. Give me a sec. I'm going to come over there.
Oh, it's not.
That is an HDMI cable. There we go.
Okay.
All right. That should go.
There we go. All right. Wonderful. All right. If you could just walk us through the plans and the changes that we've made since the last hearing.
Okay, I have an itemized list of changes by sheet. So G100, we have no changes. G101, there are no changes. G102, we have no changes. G103, we have no changes. So A100, the rear elevation was redesigned. We'll see that better on the following sheet. The rear wall of the proposed floor plans was updated to reflect the new design. The rear elevation was redesigned. So basically we reduced glazing at the request of the board. So A100, there's no changes. I'm sorry, A100, the changes are to the rear elevation, again with the reduced glazing by 15%. A102, you can see that the changes were made to the bulkhead. So the bulkhead is now sloped, so in order to reduce visibility from the street. On A101, there's also a call out for the cornice detail, which was questioned by the board, and you asked for more clarity. The brick coursing on the front elevation was also adjusted, so there are equal spacing between the windows. There's now 8 courses of brick between each window for each story. We'll see additional details later in the set. So again, A103 shows the sloped bulkhead. Drawing A104 again just shows the sloped bulkhead. There are no other changes. Mm-hmm. So on A105, we have specifications for the gate hardware. So there is a egress easement from the church to Bright Street, and there's an access gate at the front of Bright Street. We could see that a little bit better on the front elevation here. So the board last time had questions about the basically the bulkiness and what that gate release would look like. So the specification is again on sheet A105. So basically it's just it's a electromagnetic lock. It'll be a push release. So the pad with the push button will be on the building itself. If someone's egressing out and in an emergency out the alleyway, they'll press the push to exit button, and there's a electromagnetic lock. It's a block. You'll see it'll be concealed by the gate itself on the inside of the gate, so facing the egress alleyway. A106, again, one of the commissioners last time asked for full details of the front entry door and the canopy. So it was also, a wall section was also asked for. So all details are now included. The windows were changed to an in-swing casement at the board's request. The spec for the Marvin in-swing casement hasn't been finalized, but we can submit a spec and color sample for staff approval. So A107, at the request of the board, we're providing colored renderings. So the renderings are to show the materials, the colors, and the depth of facade. We also have some brick samples for your review. Again, the cornice design was questioned at the last meeting. There are some historical local references to this style of brickwork on the right side of the sheet here. The first is on 257 Montgomery Street. The one in the center of the sheet is 439 to 442 Jersey Avenue. And then 445 Jersey Avenue. So the idea was to, with the least amount of relief, create a decorative cornice. And again, the idea here with this building, 90 Bright Street, is to essentially keep the design relatively simplistic, that to highlight and not take away from any of the historic buildings locally in the district.
So we have two samples of brick that we're passing around. This first one is the one that's on the plans. Will did ask me to tell you that as he was going through this, he does prefer this one, which he labeled as an alternate, but whatever the board prefers. But as he was going through it again, he stumbled upon this one, which he thought was more appropriate.
So sheet A108 is again at the board's request. It's a combined rendering of both 88 Bright Street and 90 Bright Street. So the idea is to understand the visibility of the bulkhead and the approximate color justification, looking at the adjacency of the colors of the brick of the historic building versus the new brick. There's a distinctive color difference to represent, again, differentiate between old and new. So that concludes the revisions per sheet since the last meeting. Does anyone have any questions?
Stephen, you have to turn your mic on.
Can you please identify, since I was not here the last time, is the building to the right 88 that I'm looking at here
Correct.
in this image? Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, I have one question. I didn't see dimensions on the drawing, but looking at the elevation and maybe some of the renderings, is the intent that the spacing of the windows on the front horizontally across the facade is equal? Because
Yes.
it looks in the drawings as though the brick pier down the center is slightly wider. I didn't know if that was just an error or if that was intentional. It's not dimensions, so I'm not sure what the
Yeah.
intent is.
To
And
be
you-
honest, I would have to defer to the architect who couldn't make it tonight. We could follow up. It's equal. Okay.
And you talked a lot about the changes to the front. Just remind me any changes to the rear again.
Yeah. So the rear changes were to reduce the amount of glass. So on the previous set of drawings, there was 15% more glass. The facade more resembled a curtain wall or a storefront. Now we've basically made the change to, resemble more punched openings in the facade.
And in between the openings, it's a fiber cement board?
The cladding?
Yes.
Yes.
Could you show a side elevation? I believe you had windows, fenestration on the side elevation. Right, so is there a separation between the two buildings that is allowing for the fenestration that's appearing behind the lower building?
Yeah, so you can see in the floor plans here, the first, second, third, fourth, and roof plan, that there's the window well. It's on the right side of each plan.
Yes, I see it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions? Anything you want to go back and look at?
The only thing I was thinking is I think the materials are all appropriate at the front. I'm just not convinced maybe on some of the color choices for like the cast stone and the fiber cement. And I think you were in the rendering that shows about the other buildings on the block and other buildings as well. I think the brick is a good color, both of them. And maybe you can go back to the rendering that shows it on the block in these other examples. I know the building on the left maybe has some lighter color lintels, but I still think that's more a little atypical in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. So I think it may be something that's a darker brown color would probably be appropriate for the cast stone sills. But maybe I can take a look at the samples again. And that's also something I could be comfortable with staff working on to get a little bit of a darker finish.
And the applicant is happy to darken the colors if that's the board's request.
And I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that, but to me it's reading a little
bluish.
A little blue.
Mm-hmm.
I know there are some bluestone lintels and sills around, but I'm not sure if that's the right choice here.
Yeah, I had that same reaction when it was passed around, actually. Thank you.
Just because you brought up the brick, Brian, is there a general feeling on the brick? I know that there were essentially two options here.
Well, we have one that is rendered and one that we
Well,
don't know
right.
what it looks like, so
Yes.
it's kind of hard to say we could change it.
But we can be satisfied or unsatisfied with the option in the rendering. And I guess that's really more my question.
I mean, the rendering is, renderings do the best they can to get as close to reality as they can, but they're always not 100%. So I would say to look at the material sheet and then also the actual physical samples.
Maybe you can even hold them up for us by the, yeah. And I was going to ask if a mortar color had been explored as well.
I don't believe that a mortar color has been selected, but it's something we could work with the staff on.
I think that's also important, how the facade's going to read if you're thinking a white or something that matches the brick color. I'm also confident staff can.
You also pointed out that the one on the right the brick is consistent in color. The one on my right, sorry, thank you, Stephen. The one on the left, there's more changes in color, which, it's going to be a more active facade, no question.
I don't know, I think maybe they could work with staff on the brick selection because the difference is not so great for what we're reviewing today.
I think either way it's good. I think maybe having a little bit more of a variety actually would be a good thing here, because the brick is the body of the facade, and between that and the cornice is going to be where you're getting the variety from. So, but again, that's something where I could leave that to staff to select in the field, as long as it's one of these two
Okay.
bricks. And did you have an idea of if it would be a light mortar or a similar color to the bricks? Is that
I would suggest a similar color to the bricks. I also would suggest the brick with more variation, even just for the sake of repairs late in the future. The variation in the brick will assist with not making the repairs as apparent. But yes, I would say a mortar color to match the brick.
And is the coping above the cornice, is that the same material as the sills?
I don't believe so.
The top of the building, good question.
I think on another sheet it was called out as cast stone.
Cast stone coping as detailed color to match window sills below. Yeah. So if you're changing the sills, you're going to be changing the coping at the top as well.
Yeah,
right?
and I think that's
Yeah,
okay.
and the applicant's, of course, fine with that. Maybe going towards more of a limestone or something, but working with staff on that.
Okay.
All right, any additional questions?
Oh, and the canopy color is going to be the same as the fiber cement board at the main entry.
The canopy itself.
Yes. It looks like it's black, aluminum and steel, windows, front and rear patio doors, and aluminum canopy.
Right. The canopy is aluminum.
And just remind me, how was the canopy reduced from what was previously shown?
I don't believe it was reduced. I believe it was just clarified. I believe he will just provided additional details on this sheet at the bottom of A101.
If someone had questions at the last session about the canopy and whether it was appropriate or not, right?
I think that's maybe the one thing I'm solving just a little bit of a struggle with, but it still seems maybe a little deep. I don't know. I guess it's just more modern canopy.
I have no other.
We can talk about it during
Comments?
staff comments if
Yes,
you want.
sure. Sure.
I don't want to do my usual thing where I butt in and take over your time to hear myself talk. All right, so if there are no additional comments or questions, I mean, we can always go back for clarification if stuff comes up during staff comments. But this seems like a good stopping point to open public comment. In agreement with that? Yes. Okay. If there are any members of the public present who would like to speak regarding this application, you may approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion to open and close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so going to the staff report. So in this staff report, I mean, it seems I recognize there are some things we still need clarified. It does seem the general consensus is moving towards one where we think we might be able to approve this. So we'll focus on the first section of staff comments, which just confirms that with the overall design of the project, we do think that this is appropriate for the historic district. And we do believe that the variances necessary to approve this project, again, are ones that we can recommend the approval of. The height variance being the one that we, I'll say we typically struggle with as a board, right? Whether or not to go up to that height. In this case, it matches the direct adjacent neighbor. This block of Bright Street has a series of varying heights, so I don't think it's going to cause an adverse effect. It's not going to break up a streetscape. In fact, I actually think this aligns the streetscape a little bit better. The design of the building is something we see consistently throughout the historic districts and also on this block. There are a couple of similarly designed buildings on this street and on York Street just above it. Their construction has not caused an adverse effect, and I do not believe that this is going to cause an adverse effect. So we do recommend the approval of this certificate of appropriateness and recommendation to the zoning board for approval. With the conditions in the staff report, I also picked up the conditions that we spoke about. The first one would be to add dimensions to the front facade to confirm equal spacing at the time of submission of construction documents. For HPC staff to work with the applicant to revise the sill and coping color to be more consistent with what is found in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. And that the applicant shall work with HPC staff to select brick and mortar samples out of the ones provided to the commission, and that the applicant shall do a mock-up in the field for staff. So that's the recommendation. I do want to pivot back to the canopy. It is a modern canopy. It's probably, I would go so far as to say, with the exception of the window style on this building, it's probably the most modern part of this building, right? That door entry. But I don't really think it detracts from anything in the historic district. I don't think it's going to be an adverse effect, have an adverse effect. And part of that is its positioning on the building. We do not really have a raised entrance here. This is not a canopy and door entry look at 88 on this rendering, right? We have a second floor entry there. If this canopy and door was there, I think it would be a lot more visible. It would be have a much stronger impact on how you read the facade going across, and also on how modern it looks. Because this is lower, it reads more as street level. I really don't think it's going to have an adverse effect from a staff perspective. I don't really have a concern or a problem with it. I would say it's a standard projection for a canopy. That being said, though, canopies have been extending further and further and further as of late. So this is standard for right now, but it probably would have been considered a longer extension a couple of years ago. That being said, though, that we have the stoop. The intention of it is to keep people dry when they're going into the building. So I don't really have a problem with it from a staff perspective. Does anyone have any questions about any of it?
Well, the only other thing is, do we want the hardy plank at least at the front the color to also be looked at? Because in the rendering, it's kind of like this grayish color, kind of light. Maybe that should just be looked at if the sills and the coping stone is changed. I think you should add in
Perfect.
the hardy plank at the front.
Door entry, hardy plank. Okay. Does anyone have any other questions for staff? Again, the recommendation on this one is to approve with a recommendation for approval to the zoning board. With the conditions.
I'll make the motion to approve with the conditions as read and make the recommendation to the planning board.
I'll second it.
Okay. Stephen, are those conditions acceptable, including the ones I read into the record?
The conditions are acceptable to the applicant.
Thanks. All right. I have Janelle making the motion. Corey with the second. We'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Blazak.
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin.
Aye.
Commissioner Griega.
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther.
Aye.
Vice Chair, before I do that, Commissioner Amatuzzo is absent. Commissioner Sakong is absent. Commissioner Sandkamp is recused. Vice Chair Gucciarda.
Aye.
And Chairman Gordon.
Aye.
Okay. There are 6 votes in favor, none against, and no abstentions. The COA and recommendation to the zoning board for 90 Bright Street is approved.
And I will now call case H23-47. We have the same applicant, Stephen Joseph Esquire, on behalf of 88-90 Bright SPE LLC. This is for 88 Bright Street, still in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. and this application is for a certificate of appropriateness for a proposed rear and fourth story addition to an existing 3-story building, interior renovations, and front facade restoration, and an altered contributing Italianate townhouse built circa 1890. This is again a recommendation, or no, excuse me, this is a recommendation to the Jersey City Planning Board, and it was also carried from at the request of the applicant at our last meeting in May.
Great. Thank you. For the record, Stephen Joseph of Castano Quigley-Trami for the applicant. Caroline, you are still under oath for this application, and we're going to do the same thing and just run through the plans and talk about the changes.
Okay, for the record, Caroline Greco speaking for the applicant, registered architect. So again, just sheet by sheet, I'm going to go through changes since last meeting. So G100, we have no changes. G101 is the proposed site plan, and again, we just have a rear stoop update to reflect a new rear elevation design. No changes. G102, no changes. A100. So the rear elevation was redesigned. The rear wall of the proposed floor plans was updated to reflect the new design. The rear elevation, sorry, I'm just gonna skip through to we get to the elevation. So A102, there are no changes. A103, so again, the commission was concerned with the amount of glazing on the rear elevation. So we reduced, again, the percentage of glazing by about 15%. The windows now read as large punched openings versus a wall of glass. The specifications will be the same. It was just the reduction in glass. So the next few sheets, A104 through A108, don't show any changes.
Could you, that's a little fast for me. I'm just seeing some of these for the first time. The prior to, and the one before that, please. I'm trying to understand the size of the additions. So the proposed building section is above, the existing building below. I see that. I'm just understanding the fourth floor and how it's interacting with the existing building. So I see that's wrapping over the top and coming towards the front of the building, and it includes some type of outdoor space, both adjacent to that and on top of the roof. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And I believe there was some concern at the last meeting about this building if these changes were made to this building without 90 Bright being built, that this would be visible from the public right-of-way. Yes, okay, and there's the drawing thank you, that's the one I was looking for, is how the extension wrap and the additional floor would appear from the street without 90 Bright being built.
Yeah, yes, that's correct, and that's, you know, I think a concern that we have on a lot of projects, and I think one of the reasons why we wanted to get through 90 Bright Street first, so the board wouldn't have to, at least here at the HPC, struggle with that. Of course, we do need approvals from planning board on one of these and zoning board on the other one. There's always things that they get denied, and then even after that, that the project doesn't get built for whatever reason, or one of them gets built. But I don't know how we can how we can control that.
I'm not sure either, but I was wondering if the approval of this addition and fourth floor could be conditioned on 90 Bright being built. Is that possible? I mean, we've put conditions on applications before.
So the applicant is agreeable to that. The applicant will happily agree to that. I'm not sure, maybe for the board's attorney, I'm not sure if
Yeah, I don't know if we can do that.
I would be hesitant to endorse such a condition.
Yeah.
So then how do we prove this if it's a standalone application? Well,
As if it were a standalone application.
I mean, you have to consider the whole context of the neighborhood, right?
Right.
And one of the properties in the neighborhood just got certification from the Historic Preservation Commission to be built, keeping in mind, of course, that there are other boards and things. But I mean, also they provided a rendering for what it looks like by itself.
right. No, I get that. I'm reacting to, listened to the transcript. I heard what the issues were with the board when this was heard in May, and I'm just looking for a solution because I think there was some concern about the visibility of the fourth floor without 90 being built, right? Can I ask, is this one project that's being built at the same time, both 88 and 90?
The intention is to build them both at the same time, and in fact, the church to the rear is also under same ownership. So the intention is to kind of have all the construction going at the same time.
Right, but
The-
that's not guaranteed. of
No,
course, right? Okay,
yeah,
just so I understand what the intention is.
yeah. Yeah, and my client also advised that it's all under the same construction financing as well.
I see.
I don't think I could offer, much more that the board hasn't already heard, which is, a vacant lot in Jersey City, especially in this area, unlikely to not be developed, especially when there's approvals. But I think the board, as council said, does have. They know there is an approval that just happened for 90. You've seen the rendering both with and without 90 being constructed.
And I think we should also, I think the main thing we should be concerned about is the visibility from directly across the street, which is like A105 has the sight line and it's right there. But I think and I don't know if there is a rendering from directly across the street. I think the intention is that it wouldn't be visible over the cornice and over the primary facade, if I'm correct.
That's correct. The visibility we're talking about is the oblique from the.
Yeah,
from
it's
the
perfectly
side.
fine
Yeah.
from across the street. Your rendering shows that, and there's no issue whatsoever.
Well, I would caution that we might want to consider reducing the heights just so that it doesn't accidentally become visible over the cornice once it's built.
Yeah, because it is right. The sight line has it right there, so it's like another inch and you'd probably see something. Though the Bright Street is a very wide street, probably one of the widest. I know we've had, I think it's 89 where we did, which was only a 2-story building, but we did approve rooftop addition.
Yeah.
What's that?
87.
87.
Right.
89 is also new construction.
Yeah. And so this is a block, this and the block immediately west of it have a lot of infill on it.
Understood.
So I discussed with the architect and my client, we could take the height down 2 inches and we could certify the height. That's not a problem.
The other question I have is, I think I was one of the commissioners last go-round who had requested that we see this view. If the lot were vacant, how would this appear? And I'm a little disappointed that it's cropped and it doesn't really give us the full effect. So we
felt the
can't
same.
actually evaluate what the effect would be.
Right. Yeah, or the scale of the building, the mass of the building, you can't see it.
Yeah, understood. You're right. Yep.
That's all I have for now.
I do have materials in my hand. I was waiting till we got to that page. I believe the rear material is the same as it was for 90.
Okay, so this is it's the bottom, and it's circled on the back. This is the cornice color and trim.
I believe it's classic black, right? The one on the palette.
Classic
on the bottom.
brown.
Classic brown. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the rendering doesn't do a good job of demonstrating that color. The cast stone looks a little bit more gray, and as well as the stair. It's intended to be that classic brown.
What color is the cornice now?
The classic brown.
Oh, the existing color.
Oh,
You're
I'm
just
sorry.
is it a brown now, or is it?
Go back to the first page. It
Oh,
is
it's like a
yellow.
tan yellow color. And just remind me, is there a brick face on this building and that you're removing? I know later on there was a brick test patch. Is that, what did we find? I don't remember if that was done prior. I don't think it was, right? So what is it? What does that show? What has it shown us?
Yeah, that was done after the last hearing. Yeah, so it's what we learned is it's not brick face. It's original brick.
Looks like the paint came off fairly easily off the front.
Paint came off. I think we're going to have to be a little bit more careful with it the next go around, but it's there, and I think we could salvage it.
And then did you do a test at like the areas that are painted yellow where the like the water table and at the lintels? No. So in the rendering it's shown as like a brown, but I guess the intention would be to leave whatever or match whatever color is there underneath.
You're talking about the water table?
Yeah, the water table, and there's some, I'm not sure what material it is, but at the there's brick soldier courses at the lintels, and then some sort of either cast stone or maybe it's some sort of stone there.
Right, so that's the decorative cast stone at the top.
Yeah.
So the intention is for all the details to be the classic brown.
Okay. And that includes the water table and the stoop as well?
It does, yes.
Oh, so we shouldn't go
Yeah.
by what we're seeing
The
here.
rendering, unfortunately, that band at the bottom of between the garden level and the first floor, it just didn't render correctly.
Okay.
Are there questions? Anyone want to go back in the plans and see anything? I'm not hearing anything. So why don't we, you want to open a public comment and then we can move into staff comments? Sure. Okay. All right. If there are any members of the public present who would like to speak regarding this application, you can approach the public comment mic. Staff sees no members of the public present, so I recommend a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion to open and close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we'll move into staff comments. We do have the staff report. So this building is a little bit, in my opinion, more trickier than 90, right?
Sure.
It's I call these additions Tetris additions because it's the upside down L shaped going onto the building. If this was not potentially visible from the public right of way, I think it would be a lot easier for the commission to review, despite the fact that it does, in my professional opinion, overwhelm the historic resource. the visibility is the hard part here. And I recognize the applicant just got a recommendation to build the building next door, and that all of the, per their statement on the record, that all of the construction financing is together. I will also add on the record, the developer who was sitting there, has done many of these projects in Jersey City before, right? It's not an unknown entity. So I do believe him when he says this building is going to be built. But the reality is that they're two separate applications because they're two separate blocks, and the commission does have to consider the effects of this visibility if the building was not built. The shape of the building is not that is visible on the side is not atypical from what we see downtown on something where something has been demolished. It's simply just the bulk of the addition. I do think that it's something that we see consistently downtown. It's something that the commission has approved in the past. And I do think it is an approvable project, but it's a lot of bulk. And that's just something that if the commission has to be comfortable with that level of bulk. I would not recommend that we go into it thinking that it's going to feel less bulky because we're building something next door, because that's not true. But it is not going to be visible from the front facade looking over the building, which it has historically been our most concerning viewpoint.
Where else would it be seen from?
Well, I'm talking about if 90 wasn't built, right?
Right.
But-
If 90 wasn't built, it's a large structure.
Right.
Yeah.
But historically, we've also, our most important viewpoint for visibility has been the front of the building, and it's not visible from the front. If you need something to weigh it against, considering the bulk that is visible on the side. And again, while we see additions this size consistently, and they are constructed in the historic district, and it is big for this building, but it's not this. The bulk that we see here is consistent for the block, right? We have on the block site plan, you see there's many buildings that even exceed this bulk, especially the one directly adjacent to the right.
Of course, yeah.
It's just coming to terms with the bulkiness of this. The staff report does have conditions were the commission to approve this. I do think it's an approvable project. I do not think it's going to have an adverse effect. However, if the commission does believe that it's too bulky, there are also citations if the commission wanted to deny it. My professional opinion on this is that it's not going to have an adverse effect, and that I do think it's approvable, and I do think the commission can make a recommendation for approval to the planning board.
With regard to the bulk, is it, I guess, as of right?
No.
So there's a variant. There's
Yes.
a variance for sure. Okay.
If we want to go up to the first page, it's
So let's review the variances, please.
yeah, there is a rear. I know for a fact there's a rear yard setback variance because it is an undersized lot slightly, but they did a proportional setback, which is what we say. Can you zoom in on that? I feel like.
And Maggie, if I may, while I agree with council, we can't have a condition about the adjacent building being built, this is a recommendation to the planning board. So this board could recommend to the planning board that this application not be approved if 90 Bright Street is not approved.
Yeah, I agree with
That's
that.
kind of what I was saying, but, right, it still doesn't guarantee when 90 would be built, right?
The
Yeah.
construction we don't have
Right.
control over.
Yeah, understood.
But I'm sure Chairman Langston would take whatever recommendation this board has and
But you're
follow it.
suggesting that it would be all right with the applicant if this did not get approved unless 90 was approved, is what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
Is that something the planning board could consider?
I don't see why not. The board can disregard or not disregard this board's recommendation and decide however they want. So I can't see why they can't take into account suggestions. And
They definitely could
evaluate
take account the recommendation, but wouldn't the planning board still be confined to the restraints that they review the application as it is before them? Or do they have more latitude in reviewing?
I think they have more latitude in reviewing this board's recommendation. And especially since there are variances associated with this project, I think they would be able to deny this based on this board's recommendation, without necessarily specifically referencing another approval. Trying to get a little creative here to make the board a little bit more comfortable.
Here's a couple things I would suggest if we were looking at this, and just in case, what is the other one? 90? This is 80? I'm getting confused. I'm looking on A104, and just a couple of things that would make me a little bit more comfortable if we did end up seeing this side facade would be if the pitch of the roof were kept up to where the addition, the fourth story addition is, which I think wouldn't be a massive change. At least from the front behind the cornice to where the addition pops up. And I think the other thing that would help reduce the mass would be if the 3'6" parapet were reduced or just put a railing there.
It's required by the ordinance that the parapet's 3'6". So we couldn't reduce the parapet, but we could consider.
When has that
railing.
been done? I don't think that's true.
Is that a
think
building
that's a
code or an
requirement.
ordinance?
You could have a 42-inch railing there, I think, and
That I think I just said that. I think maybe you just jumped in before I finished.
oh, sorry.
So I said that the parapet itself, right, by ordinance and code has to be 42 inches high. It could be a guardrail instead of a parapet. But the height has to be the 42 inches.
Yeah, I think if that were changed to a railing, metal railing perhaps, that would be, I think, cut down on the visual mass that we'd see potentially over that vacant lot if.
It would.
So I think that would help maybe to make people a little bit more comfortable. And I don't know how if 90 gets built, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
You wouldn't even need a railing there at that point.
So I don't know how we would.
Brilliant suggestion. Is there any reason why this couldn't be heard as one application?
They're separate lots.
I'm not so brilliant.
But that is why they're presenting them here at the same time and not at separate
Right,
meetings. So.
exactly. It would certainly make things simpler.
Maggie, if 90 were to get approved and a railing were approved here at 88, would we have to come back to the board to change the railing to? We
No.
could do that
No.
administratively.
Yeah, we
so.
could do that administratively.
So since we have to review the application with the existing conditions, is there, based on the proposed design, is there any way to distinguish the existing historic fabric from the addition on the side facade? Or could we adopt something just to delineate so you don't conflate what is the original historic fabric and what is being added on after the fact?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand. You
So-
mean distinguish the materials being used on the side facade?
What is original and what is being added? So under the assumption that 90 doesn't get built, it would be preferable to be able to make that distinction.
Yeah, I mean, a material, yeah. I mean, it could be by color or,
And we happen to have two brick samples.
Well, that brings up a good question. How is this facade being treated? It's being stuccoed, right? All the way across.
yeah, correct.
Right. So I understand we've done that in the past where we've shown the line of the original building in the facade to show this, to make that distinction. The question is what's appropriate if there's no building next door.
I will just point out that the existing side facade material is stucco.
It is. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
and I think that's why the applicant was choosing to just re-stucco everything.
Well, also because it'll essentially be a party wall.
Yeah.
When the other building's built.
In my opinion, it could just simply be some line. It doesn't have to change in color. It just should just indicate where the old building was in some type of relief or an incise or something like that.
Okay.
To honor the existing structure. That might help.
I agree.
Okay. Like just a relief line within the stucco?
I'm sorry?
A relief line in the stucco of
Yeah,
the,
that
okay,
would be great. It's a good suggestion.
okay. All right. Any additional questions for staff? Any additional questions for the applicant? Do we feel like this is something we can approve?
Yeah.
Maybe just go over exactly what the conditions
Sure.
would be.
Sure. So in the staff report, we have more or less our standard conditions. However, the first condition on the staff report reads, no portion of the roof deck or accessories, umbrellas, vegetation, etc., shall be visible from the public right of way. Any portion of the roof deck and or accessories, or if any portion of the roof deck or accessories are visible, this approval shall be considered null and void and subject to zoning violations. I would like to amend that condition in here, and I'll just add in rooftop addition, roof deck, and accessories. Right, I think that covers us on some of the height concerns. Everything else is a standard condition.
What about the parapet wall?
I will get there.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And then we also have conditions that were discussed. The first would be to reduce the rooftop addition height by 2 inches. That the HPC recommends that the planning board deny 88 Bright Street if the zoning board does not approve 90 Bright Street. Just want to make the distinction that planning board is not reviewing both projects. Zoning board is reviewing 90. Planning board is reviewing 88.
Do we definitely know the other one is going first before this?
Based on the scheduling for planning board, yes. I think planning board right now might be scheduling into October.
Wow.
And zoning board is not having the same quite backup. But that is an excellent point. I was going to bring that up. Is that does make it a little tricky in terms of if something happens, but not something that any of you have to be concerned about, to be honest. That the roof deck parapet shall be changed to a railing, and that the applicant shall add a relief line to the side facade facing 90 Bright Street to indicate original building outline. If we just, because this is up, if we wanted to add an additional condition, just because the rendering is inaccurate in terms of the coloring of the water table and stoop, we could also just add a condition that just says the proposed color for the water table and stoop shall be classic brown.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask about that. Do we want that? Are we sure we want that painted? I mean, if it's
currently painted.
Okay.
Can we just go over the color of the stucco for the side,
Yeah.
the lot line? Not
Is
sure
it-
if that's rendered accurately
I
or not
don't-
also.
We have the hard A. Is that? It's not the stucco. I think this is the stucco. The second one down there.
It's always so light. Reflects so much light.
Right.
I don't think we have the.
The stucco sample.
It's so the panel. There's a note on here that says the stucco will match. Sorry, we'll match this panel.
So then I guess I'm wondering if, we're grappling with this potential facade being visible, the potentiality that this facade could become visible if the other building isn't built, which we know is not extremely likely, but possible. Should we think about a different color for the stucco in the event that it is visible?
Do we have the photo of what it is now?
Yeah.
Looks like a gray now.
Yeah, we can just see a little bit of it. Do you have a suggestion?
I mean, maybe just something that darker or warmer that goes with the brick or the cornice and not such a stark light color. I didn't know if it was like a rendering issue, like with the
Yeah.
So
stoop.
yeah, and during our site visits, I mean, it looks not great. It's like a concrete that's painted. In person, it looks a little bit more yellow, but we're happy to agree at whatever, if the classic brown the board feels is.
I mean, I just think, even though it's a slim chance,
No, of course.
it would soften the effect if need be.
And the condition can also be, if it's visible that, staff approves the final stucco color.
Yeah, that works for me.
All right, the applicant shall work with HPC staff to determine final stucco color on the facade facing 90 Bright Street.
If it is visible.
I don't even want to add if it's visible in there, because if
Then
we're doing
don't.
that, it's implied that it's visible.
Yeah, so all of those conditions would be acceptable to the applicant.
Okay. All right, any other questions for staff, or does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll do the motion.
Okay. Again, the recommendation is to approve a COA and make a recommendation for approval to the planning board with conditions.
So motion with approval and conditions.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Commissioner Griega and Commissioner Cronin. All right, Commissioner Griega,
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther,
Aye.
Commissioner Blazak,
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Amatuzo is absent. Commissioner Sandkamp is recused. Commissioner Sakong is absent. Vice Chair Gucciardo
Aye, and thank you for accommodating some of our concerns.
and Chairman Gordon.
Aye.
Right, there are 6 in favor, none against, and no abstentions. The COA and recommendation of the planning board is approved.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Does she need 5 minute break?
What?
Want to take 5 minutes or just power through?
Do you want to take a break, or are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Let's power through. I think we'll be okay.
All right, so I am moving into new business, and we have the return of Commissioner Sandkamp. Welcome back to the dais. And I'm calling case H24-147, applicant Tom Lean Esquire on behalf of 1292 Hancock LLC, owner. The address is 94 Wayne Street in the Van Voorst Park Historic District. This application is for a certificate of appropriateness for interior renovations and a proposed roof deck at an altered, contributing, transitional, neo-Grec townhouse built circa 1875.
Sorry, trying to find the right one.
Yeah, there's a whole mess of dongle inputs.
No. Sorry.
That good?
I don't know.
Let's see. Sometimes the, okay. Usually I use this guy, so.
What are they going to do? It's only going to be there for 10 minutes.
There we go.
You'd be the best husband ever. Love.
Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, Tom Lean of Connell Foley here on behalf of 1292 Hancock LLC, who is the owner of 94 Wayne Street. As mentioned, this is an application for a certificate of appropriateness, seeking approval for, or seeking a certificate for a proposed roof deck and interior renovations. We only have one witness. It's Barry Wood, who is our architect. He has not appeared before this board before, so I will ask that he be qualified.
We just have to
Would-
swear him in first.
Oh, yes. I do. Barry W. Wood. Mr. Wood, if you wouldn't mind giving the board the benefit of your qualifications.
I've been a licensed architect since 1999 in 3 states.
Including New Jersey, and your license is up to date?
Is current, yes.
Okay. And the plans that were submitted to the board were prepared by yourself?
Yes, sir.
Okay, could you please run the board through the proposed renovations and addition of
Staff
the roof?
recommends that the chair accept Mr. Wood's qualifications as an expert in the field of architecture.
Thank you. So accepted.
This proposal is to add a roof deck to the brownstone. You can see on this title sheet the existing roof on the right-hand side and the additional roof deck. If I move forward to first to A301, you can see the sight line from across the street. The roof deck and the stair bulkhead from the 4th floor are not in that sight line.
Is it possible for you to make it full screen? I didn't bring my
I
glasses.
would love to, but my trackpad is not working.
Okay.
If there's a keyed thing for me to do that, I certainly would. If anyone happens to know that key stroke. My apologies. So here's a larger drawing of the roof deck with a 10-foot setback in the rear and a 12-foot setback from the cornice. All of the materials are composite, and the stair bulkhead has a stucco finish, which we had submitted, which matches the front facade of the building.
By the way, maybe try command control F.
Command Control F.
There you go.
Boom.
There you go.
Nice, thank you.
Look at us, technology whizzes.
Sure, here you go.
All of the skylights are existing.
So this is there's no visibility of this roof deck from anywhere, correct?
You guys have any material samples you want to show the board?
Just the one that we had submitted.
Yeah, the commissioners haven't seen that, so, yeah.
Mr. Wood, before I pass this around, would you please describe what this material is and where it'll be located on the building?
That is a stucco finish that is on the stair bulkhead.
Can you describe the decking material? Is it, you said it was a composite?
Yes. This is the material. It's a Tile Tech. Just the rear safety railing, but the screen around this deck is also a composite. That safety railing is for the purposes of the compressors in the back for maintenance only. And the existing fire escape probably should have a safety rail next to it, and it doesn't, so.
Stephen, your mic.
You gotta put your mic on. You gotta put your mic
You have to turn your mic on.
My apologies. Is it a 6-foot-high fence that you're putting around the area?
The roof deck, it's 5 foot high. And then the safety rail is 42 inches high.
Why such a high railing?
The safety rail?
You're enclosing the deck with a railing, correct?
No, it's a screen. It's a full planked screen that's 5 feet tall.
Yeah, that's just unusual. I've never seen that before presented. It's usually, I know it's not seen from the public right of way, but usually it's just a safety railing. Never seen a 5-foot-high fence.
The intention was this will be the first roof deck on this block. And looking at all the roofs, I thought if these were all just railings in between, that it would then kind of seem like not privacy. So that's why we had wanted to do that, and understood that the screen has to be finished on the outside as well.
Okay, thank you.
Maggie, do we normally get these applications when there's no visibility?
Yep, every roof deck comes to the HPC because that's what the ordinance says, that any rooftop addition has to go to the HPC. Something
Makes
we
it
can
easy.
discuss at a later date when we get to those guidelines.
Public comment?
Okay. So does that conclude your testimony? Great. If there are any members of the public present who would like to comment on this application, please approach the public mic. Staff sees no members of the public present and recommends a motion to open and close public comment.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to staff comments. This is very standard, consistent with Secretary Interior standards. The proposed roof deck is also consistent with similar roof decks that we see throughout the historic districts and the commission has approved in the past. Staff's opinion is that it will not cause an adverse effect on the character or integrity of the resource for the Van Voorst Park Historic District. So staff recommends approval with our standard conditions.
And just for the record, we are in receipt of staff's July 15th memo with the conditions therein, and they are acceptable to my client.
Do you guys have any questions for staff?
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions as set forth.
Second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Sandkamp,
Aye.
Commissioner Gunther,
Aye.
Commissioner Blazak,
Aye.
Commissioner Cronin,
Aye.
Commissioner Griga,
Aye.
Commissioner Amatuzo is absent, Commissioner Sakong is absent, Vice Chair Gucciardo,
Aye.
and Chairman Gordon.
Aye.
Right, there's 7 votes in favor, none against, with no abstentions. The COA with conditions is approved.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
All right, moving down on the agenda, as we stated in announcements, both 9B, which is 2624 JFK, that is carried to a date uncertain. 9C, the review and recommendation of the proposed amendments to the local landmark designation standards, also carried. That is carried to the August HPC meeting. I have no update on the tabled case. Our tabled demolition review, 384 Communipaw Avenue, is also carried to the August HPC meeting at the applicant's request. Any questions on any of that? Cool. We have no resolutions to introduce or discuss, no resolutions to memorialize. We do not need an executive session, so that just leaves us with adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All right, it is 7:50. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.